Leslie. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you on this fine Monday?
Doing well. Doing
Good.
well. We have beautiful weather today, so that always helps immensely.
Doesn't it? We have had today, the last few days here have been really beautiful. We had a spike in the temperature last week that was a little scary. We had a couple of days last week that were 97 degrees.
Ah,
I know. In April, you kind of freak out when that happens because you think, what's going to happen next, but it kind of
all summer going to be 120.
oh, yeah, well, it's so scary, but it kind of resets. So we've got gorgeous, perfect spring weather and, trying to get out and enjoy it. It really helps a lot to get outside.
Good.
So
And where are you?
I live in San Antonio.
Nice. So you've got
Yes.
beautiful spring happening there.
Yes, we do. We really have beautiful weather almost all the time. There is heat, you kind of pay for the lack of cold winter here with the summer being hot. But having grown up in the Midwest where we had 4 seasons, that no one on either end of the equation believes me when I say this, but the summer here, although we get tired of the duration of the heat, I guess, the heat is more tolerable here because it's not as humid. There are a few exceptions to that, of course, if we've had rain. But honestly, in the Midwest, it's incredibly humid all the time. And so for some reason, I find that kind of heat much more difficult to contend with. It
Yes.
seems like, yeah. Well, here, when the sun gets high in the sky, it kind of burns off the humidity that comes in from the Gulf. So yeah, no one's more surprised by that than me, but yeah, but you do kind of plan your day around that. The joke here is that the best parking space in the parking lot in the summer is the one has a little tiny tree in front of it, so you can have shade. I mean, it is really funny. I do find myself adapting to, I don't go out as much in the middle of the day because I don't want to be exposed to the sun and that kind of thing. So more
Nice.
aware of that here than I was where I grew up.
Nice. What does a lockdown look like where you are?
Well, we're kind of, it's almost, it would be funny if it wasn't so serious because my husband and I, when we're home, we're pretty hermity. I mean, I tend to be, now that our kids are grown and out of the house, I tend to be pretty isolated when I'm here. I travel a lot, and so the flip side of that for me is that I need a lot of solitude, and it's important for me with my work. And so the truth of the matter is it doesn't look a lot different. I guess the difference that everyone is feeling is that, the idea of running to the store or, it would be really great to be able to go to the salon, but, those kind of things are, incidentals. Really, for us, we're very fortunate that we have space around us so we can get outside and walk in our own garden. But the idea of being separated from a lot of other people isn't really all that upsetting to me. I mean, I love people. I love being around people, but I need personally equal, if not greater amounts of solitude to kind of balance that. So, and my husband got sick with a variety of things, kind of like one after the other, right around the first part of March. So we were already kind of on our own little personal lockdown here.
Is he doing okay now?
Yeah, he's feeling better now, but it was just kind of a sequence of things that happened, and none of them were life-threatening, of course, and thankfully. But so we were already insulated before the official word came down that we needed to be. So we've been at this for what? I don't know how many weeks now.
For a long time now.
I guess a good solid 7 weeks, maybe longer. So yeah. How about you?
We're doing fine. It's, I think, week 6 for us, and I'm just settling, feeling like my brain is finally starting to come back online.
Yeah.
the
I
kids are,
understand.
just plugging away. We're doing fine.
Well, I bow down to you because I'm in awe of people who are, like, I have a friend here in my local guild who is a teacher, a public school teacher. So she's overseeing that and dealing with online classes for her students. And she has 3 kids at home, and she has to oversee each of their very different, because they're very different ages. And I'm just stunned that anybody can do that. It
Well,
just
the
seems,
2 that are left at home have been raised with benign neglect. So they're very independent.
hey, you know what?
And they're good. They're really, really easy, good kids. So I just check in and I see them on a screen and say, "Is it school?" And they say, "Yep." And then at noon I say, "Do you have homework? Yes or no?" And they're just fine.
Yeah,
So I'm really, 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 really lucky that way.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm
Yeah,
thankful
and
for you
my
because,
my hats off to any mother out there who has young children at home, especially the ones who are also trying to work, and the teachers. Oh my goodness, the teachers!
I
I can't
know,
even imagine trying to deal with this right now.
I hope that everyone, I think that I've always thought that maybe it's because my former life I was an RN, but I have always felt like nurses and teachers, maybe it's because that those 2 professions have, historically been primarily female. I don't know if that's the reason. It's always been my theory that it probably is, that they're, I think, quite underpaid for the type of work they do and the responsibility and the importance of the work they do. So I would love to think that when we come out of this, perhaps those people, first of all, I think they will definitely have earned much more respect in the eyes of people who aren't in those professions. But it would be really great if they could also be properly compensated for the work that they do. They've
Well,
never
in
been
order to,
compensated properly.
if that's going to happen, all of us have to do something about it
I
as
know.
we come out of this. So what have you been working on?
Well, that's an interesting thing, isn't it, as an artist?
Have some cool stuff coming up.
Well, yeah, I just released my new collection on Friday. The announcement was, but the gestation of a fabric collection, at least for me, tends to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 months, somewhere between 12 and 15 months, between the making of it, the idea formation. I didn't even really take that part of it in consideration, but
It's like birthing an elephant baby.
yeah, it is. I mean, really it is, because especially the way that I work, which may be slightly unusual than some designers, because I work directly on the cloth. Most of the work that I do, the mark making and the print making I do, has to do with thickened Procyon dye directly on the cloth via a silk screen or thermofax screen. So for everything I make that's halfway, I mean, I think this may be true for almost any kind of work, no matter what kind of art you're making. Everything I think is halfway decent, there's probably 20 over there in the bin that are now the new drop cloths, So in order to get to the good stuff, you got to make a lot of really questionable stuff. I do anyway.
You're preaching my that's
Yeah, you just
exactly
got to do it. I mean, as teachers, we know this, that if you can get people off that
I have to make it perfect
idea.
the first time.
Yeah. And, we all know this is setup, nobody does that. I don't know anybody who does that. I mean, if you do, it's just dumb luck. I don't know. I mean, I make a lot of really underwhelming stuff. And so then when I hit something that looks good, I move on. I keep moving on, or I'll go down that path. A lot of times the best stuff I make, especially at the print table, is me asking, well, what if I did this and do it? And then maybe it's not what I thought it was going to be at all. And it's, quote, a mistake, unquote. And then that turns out better than the original idea. So then I'll kind of go down that path. A lot of the work I make in surface design is really tied into that, really just giving myself permission to make a lot of mistakes, because usually those mistakes are where I hit the really good stuff.
And you have to be free and fearless and allow yourself to be okay with making those mistakes. If you're afraid the whole time of, oh, what if I make a mistake? Then all those what ifs never happen. And the what ifs is where all the growth is, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's the key question I ask myself. Ask yourself, what if? What if I put those two colors together? What's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing that could happen is it looked terrible and you take it down and do something else, But if you don't ask yourself what if, I don't think you ever get to the newest piece of information that excites you. So, but it is a hard thing to overcome. And we all have this. I'm still guilty of it too, suffer from it. I've got something on my design wall right now that's been staring me in the face for 2 months at least. What I'm finding, I'm going to back up for a second. I think what I'm finding right now that's interesting is, and I think a lot of people are having the same issue, I had to sort of let go of the things that I was hoping to work on. I mean, oh, yay, we got all this great time. Sounds good on paper, doesn't it? And the reality is that the stuff I really wish I could be focused on that requires a lot more cerebral work on my part seems very out of my reach right now. And I was very upset about this for a while. And then finally I said to myself, let it go of it. Go back to whatever you can do. Maybe and in the case of me personally, that meant using a couple of patterns. The one behind this shoulder over here is one of the things I did, which is a friend of mine's beautiful, gorgeous pattern. But it's pretty rote for me. And so the decision making really had to do with color, and that wasn't out of my grasp. So I decided, you know what, until that feeling of being able to make those more critical / cerebral decisions with work comes back to me, I'm going to do these other things. I want to make work, and I'm in the studio every day, but I think it's the stress. It has to be related to anxiety and fear about this other stuff that's going on that's sort of acting as a barrier for me. And I don't know if you had discovered this or not, but
I've heard it from almost everybody. Almost everybody I've talked to, there's a point where, like, they're doing something repetitive and mindless. I mean, they still want to do, right? So it's taken me this long to even get to that point. I've made masks because I need something to do, but I can't do anything up here. And just last week, I finally got to the point where I had an idea, but it's still not big. It's still a very soft easing into the creative space. I printed off, I have a bunch of travel pictures that I adore. I run them through interesting apps and make them a little bit different. I printed them on cloth, and I'm just adding embroidered texture. That's it. And it's mindless.
Forgive yourself. I think you just got to give yourself permission to do whatever it is. I mean, some days for me, it's just coming in here and finding the surface of a countertop.
Right.
That's a big deal for me.
Yeah. And I have an art daughter who is sharing my studio right now, who I can often not find any surfaces.
Oh yeah. I bet. Well, yeah, I was joking with, I guess it was the other day when I was talking to Pokey on her Instagram Live, and I said, back when my kids were still living at home, a lot of people would come back here and want to do stuff. Sometimes they just want to come hang out and do their homework back here. But my only rule really was that if they were back here, they had to be nice to me.
That's it. In your space, they have to be nice. If you want to be mean to me, we'll walk out the door.
That's right.
You have to be nice here.
I think I
It's a good
kicked a couple people out of here on occasion because of that. It's like, hey, man, I am not, this is my space.
Yeah,
That's
I
only
have a
for
couch in Lisa's studio, and sometimes the kids will come up, and in my head I call it the therapy couch, because it's kind of the place they come up, and if they sit there without doing something else for a while, I stop what I'm doing and say, what do you want to talk about? Because
yeah,
it's usually it's a different place. You know,
yeah.
I guess we create this different place where it's not the normal business of the rest of the house. So
No, I think
they
you're
feel
right.
they
And
can talk about different things there.
I think you're right. I think that everybody, whether they consciously know it or not, it, my studio, I consider it a bit of a sacred space. It's the place that this is where I'm safe to be creative and make all those mistakes we were talking about before. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it does sort of have this air of safety around it. And maybe that's why that happens. I don't know.
I
It's
don't
kind
know.
of an interesting thing to think about, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. There's definitely a different feel up here than the rest of the house. The rest of the house is great too. And it's also a fact that, like I said, the kids I have home right now are just, they're turning, they just are not giving me any trouble. I couldn't
Oh,
be more grateful. They're just
that's
fabulous
fantastic.
kids.
Well, you know, our family, because my daughters, I have three daughters, and one is up the road in Austin, about 100 miles away, but she might as well be 1,000 miles away. I mean, that's how it feels. But my other two daughters live up in the Northeast. My oldest daughter lives in Philly, and my youngest lives in West Central Mass. So
Those are hard
it's,
places right now.
yeah, they are. There's a lot going on, and it's really, I try not to be, I'm a professional worrier. I've tried to give up that profession over the years. But when all this started, you know, we know this. If you've got kids that are even in your own house, you worry about it. But when they're so far away and you're that mother, that part of your lizard brain that wants to protect your kids, no matter how old they are, is overactive again. And and what's happened in our family is we try to do a couple times a week a little Zoom gathering with everyone. And I've thanked them so many times for the fact that they have taken this seriously, and they're really taking care, and they're hunkered down and isolated. And, you know, when they go out, they're not being cavalier about it, and don't have the attitude that just because they're young, they're safe, you know.
Yeah, I
And
read
I
a
am
study
so
just the
grateful.
other
Yeah,
day that was saying there was one place in New York that did a vast number of tests on everybody in one little area, and there was a huge number who tested positive for antibodies but had never had any symptoms.
right.
So, you know, it's not
Yeah,
about whether we feel good or fine or not. You know, we could be carrying the disease and
that's
infect
right.
somebody even if we're fine. It's about loving the other. It's about caring for people who you don't even know to keep them
Right.
safe.
That's right. Yeah, and that sort of cavalier attitude about it is really unbelievably short-sighted, among other things. So, yeah, I'm very glad that they've been safe and they've been taking care. And um, my youngest daughter is an artist. She has many hats, but one of them is that she's an artist assistant to an older woman who's a sculptor and mixed media artist in Northampton.
Hmm.
And she's worked for her for quite a few years, but, you know, she also helps her out with some day-to-day things. And so I think she's been going to the store on her behalf and some things like that. And, you know, early on, she asked me, what should I do? How can I be safe? And what should I, you know, so we had a lot of discussion about that and how to protect herself and what good sanitary technique looked like. It can't be sterile technique, but, you know, what kind of barrier things she could do to assure that she was doing everything she could to prevent contact.
Mhm.
So, and I think that's great that she can help this other person too, but do it in a safe way. So, yeah.
Good. Well, what
Well, let's hope for
like,
both of us. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, you go.
I was just going to say, let's hope we both, I kind of feel like this is the week for me too, that perhaps something else in the creative sense is coming. I don't want to set myself up, but I do think there's a possibility that because I have been in here doing some other things, I hoped that my hope going into it was that by doing and just making something, that the urge would start to return and feel more natural and not forced like it was before. And I'm kind of thinking maybe this is the week that I can do that. I hope.
Let's hope it is. If we are, so many people talk about the muse and waiting for the muse, and I think you need to be just doing things. But those things don't have to be the big high art things. You just do the repetitive, you do the slogging through kind of things, and eventually, if we're open to it, Muse will return, and it will. I know it will for people. This is a real time. The anxiety is perfectly normal, perfectly natural. It's okay to feel off about all this, but have hope that it's coming back. We'll be okay, and together we will make things better after this. It's a good time to look around and see where the deficits and the deficiencies in our systems are, and think to ourselves, what can I personally do to make this better going forward?
Yes, I agree. I don't know that we really want to go back to normal, whatever that meant. I think you're right, Lyric. I think it is a chance for all of us to sit back and really look at what's important, how we take care of people, and how we, respect for all people that are not. I mean, I'm so fortunate in the position that I am sitting right now. I know it. I'm very aware of that and extremely grateful for that, because a couple of, some of it's just a roll of the dice. What family did you land in? What's your family system like? All those kind of things. I mean, there's some real social issues that coming into this were hard anyway. And then all this has just magnified that, really put a lens to it. So
those of us that do live in this space of comfort and we have access to the good parts of the system, it's a good time for us to think of how we can open up that access, and it might require sacrifice on our part, but that's what communities who care about each other do.
Right.
And we can do it. Well, Leslie, it has been absolutely delightful to see your face and to chat with you for a minute. Is there anything else that you want to say to our people?
I think I don't have any profound words. I just think, to kind of recap what we were talking about earlier, that everyone who feels anxiety, it's normal. You're right about that. And I think how it's manifesting as artists is that we come in and we feel we can't make like we did before any of this happened, or maybe even I almost felt like I couldn't pay attention to any one thing very long. Like I had to just jump around. And I think what we're both saying is that's just a pretty typical reaction to anxiety and stress. This is just how it's manifesting itself. And be kind to yourself. Do what feels like you can do. Forgive yourself for the other stuff, because eventually that will come back. I hope it comes back to me too. But that really we're in this together and supporting each other and acknowledging this. Because I think sometimes just talking about it out loud makes somebody else realize, oh, it's not just me, It's like that early parenting stuff where you think, oh my gosh, am I the only one who feels like this? Am I the only one scared and doesn't know what they're doing? No, everybody feels like that. And somehow knowing that you're not alone in that is reassuring. It was to me as a young mother, it is to me now as an artist. And we're in this together, and by supporting each other and having these conversations out loud, maybe we can all kind of feel a little better about it. So thank you for asking me to chat. It's always good to see your face, and I can't wait. I'm going to say what Jimmy Fallon says every night on his show. I can't wait till I get to see you in person.
Likewise. Likewise. It does my heart good to see everybody, and it will do it better to give real hugs at some point.
Yes, they'll be, look how meaningful they'll be when we get to do it. Right?
You're making me cry just thinking.
I know. I mean, I think that human contact, even though I am a hermit a lot of times, I am a hugger. I need to have that. And I can't wait. I think it's going to mean so much more when we can. I'm crying too.
Yeah, let's give our hugs to everybody and to you out there. Love you, Leslie.
Love you too, my friend.